All right, so I'm gonna look at a couple things today. I want to talk about a couple trades. I actually just ended up taking another one today. Um, a little bit of a long. We got about slightly over 1 hour, and then earlier, uh, got about 6.6 R, and then I actually took one last night as well. Right here. Last night, got about 1.43 R. On a long. So two longs and a short. So let's break down this most recent one that we got. I was actually looking at a potential trade right now as we speak. I got a short trigger level that I have, and this candle closed under it. So we actually, well, it just got invalidated because, as you can see, I have an invalid mark. So that means we don't have enough pressure going down to sustain that short that I was looking at. So for now, we're just hanging out until I get another setup. I don't have any other triggers right now, so we're just chilling. We'll just make these up. All right, so let's take a look at this one I just took earlier. From right here, so right here, what we have is, like I said, a trade that I took earlier. I have my key levels. This is a overnight high, pre-market high, yesterday's high. They're just very popular reaction levels. They can act as resistance or support. So I like to keep an eye on those. I actually wanted to make these a little bit different color. I forgot to change it on the 5 minute. Okay. So I also run what's called an EMA. It's basically a moving average, and it helps me decide which way the momentum's going. Right now, you can see we're right smack in the middle, and it's kind of chopping, so we don't really have good flow at the moment. Uh, but you can see kind of when it's above it, it likes to trend up. When it's below it, it kind of trends down. They have better days and worse days. This is a decent little uptrend. See how it chopped and then dropped down pretty well. You can still make some money in here. You just gotta kind of be careful. It's not really ideal. Um, so yeah, looking at this trade right here, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at what I saw and what helped me identify this trade, right? Because everything's built off of structure. I usually use a 5 minute time frame to kind of help me identify these target areas and help me figure out where my trigger levels are. 5 minutes usually the best time frame to find trend. It's like some psychological scientific backed thing that somebody smarter than me did. But nonetheless, it's a great tool to use. And this is the 5 minute, like I said, is probably my most popular time frame as far as figuring out where I want to potentially trade. So right here, I have it kind of marked out a little bit. I also have what's called, this is for your volume, and basically it shows you where it's for the session. So meaning like I have it set for the 23-hour day that you can trade in futures, and then you get 1 hour off, and then you can trade, like I said, for 23 hours a day, day and night. So this is for this whole 23-hour window that we're working with so far. And this shows me the volume at which price was traded. You can see I have a little yellow line, yellowish goldish line that comes right down the middle. That is also where I have yesterday's high. So you can see where it kind of got there, and a lot of trading happened in this section. It veered off here and there, but you can see where it kind of goes off, it came back. goes off, came back, goes off. You get the point. It's like the middle line, and this is where price is accepted. So this is usually a choppy area, this whole little bit, right? And look, now it's deciding to come back down. At the end of the day, the market's going to do what the market wants to do. Nothing's going to be 100%, and you're not going to win everything. We just kind of use what confluence we can to identify, and we run with hopefully what we think is going to work. So, like I said, this is a value. It just kind of shows you where price is accepted. Up here, this is known as like the value high, and then this red is like the value low. This is kind of where your best price action is going to be. These are also reaction points too. You can see it kind of caught itself right here, caught itself right here, up at the top. This is where this green line goes, caught itself, caught itself. So these are also these are also known to be very reactive resistance versus support levels. So you kind of just gotta pay attention to what's going on. Don't get lost in, one little thing. Definitely sit back and make sure you're looking at the whole picture. Especially with the strategy that I teach, it's very down to a system as far as I don't really veer away from it because it's gotten me this far and it works very well. So I don't like to second guess myself because psychologically things can get very distorted, and that's when you tend to overtrade, or if you take a loss or two for the day, sometimes you want to revenge trade. The psychological part of it is probably the hardest part of this whole experience, and you really just kind of got to dial in calming yourself down and really find a structured strategy that works for you, and then that way you can kind of minimize the amount of psychological persuasion that you're giving to yourself. So let's go ahead and take a quick look to see what I saw right here, right? So what I first do is I identify a trigger level, and when I'm looking for my trigger levels, I usually use the EMA to kind of help me again. Above it, looking for longs, below it, looking for shorts. So I kind of try and find an identification for what I'm going to use as my trigger level. And we go more in depth over it in the 24-week class that I have. I'm just going to give y'all like a quick little rundown, quick little demonstration of what it looks like when I'm going into a trade. And then if you ever want to get more in depth with it, like I said, we have that 24-week class where I really get in depth on how I trade and what I'm looking for at specific times, and really break down that system that I've built. All right, so so what I'm looking for right here is I'm looking for my trigger level, right? I'm looking for something that's going to set off my trigger. And I think I have a good level right here that I would want for my trigger. All right, we're above the EMA, so that's a good thing, right? So now that I've gotten my trigger set off, I draw to make sure to keep me protected and that I don't lose any momentum, kind of find me an invalid level. And then from there, I start looking at the next portion of it, which is trying to make sure that I have the right targets. Because I don't want to get into a trade and not have structure, right? You want to know at what point is this trade not valid anymore. You want to know where you're potentially going to enter, and you want to know where you're trying to go. You don't want to just go into a trade blindly and then wait for it to get somewhere and exit out of it. You want to make sure you know where you're going. Have a target. You can base there's several ways to do it. I don't necessarily use this ATR. This kind of gives you the average movement of candles over a period of time. I use this kind of as like context. It's not built into my strategy, but it helps support my levels that I do use for my targets. So it is a great piece of information, and a lot of people do base their targets like this off of ATR. So instead of doing like a structured target like I do, they'll use the momentum of the market at that given time to kind of evaluate where they want their target. And they also do that for stop losses. So it just depends on what you want to do. As a trader, you kind of evolve and learn as you go. Not everyone's right and not everyone's wrong. It's just kind of figuring out what you want to do and what helps you get through trading successfully. So right now, like I said, we have a 5 minute trigger. We have a potential trade set up. We know this is valid level. We know where if it does get back down here that it's not valid anymore. And we know that we're above this 50 EMA, so we're looking at a potential trade, right? So now let's figure out where we're going to actually take the trade and sell whenever if we do get along, right? So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back some and I'm going to try and identify some reaction points, right? This is in the form of the candle structure, and this is also, like I said, known to be reaction areas. So you definitely want to go back and see and try and find those areas because again, price will react more than likely at those spots. So you definitely want to identify them. So right now, what I'm looking for is some other identification places, some other ones, right? So this is another really big reaction area, right? So we know that the big wigs, the hedge funds, all the people with all the money reacted at this point. So there's a reason, right? So that's a big area that we want to mark. And then we keep looking back and we want to look for another one. This one's pretty close, so I'm going to leave that one where it's at. And I'll take this one and I'll take this one, right? Because I also want to keep going up. I don't want to mark every little thing. I just want to progressively go higher since this is a long. And I think, let's see, uh, another big movement spot right here as well. So you can see where it reacted twice here, a couple of times actually. And then this is another big candle that led to going down. So that's another big movement. This could have potentially been one as well. So then we'll take a look at where we're at as far as the trade goes, right? So these green lines, we have some TP levels. We have some targets that we want to look at now. And what I'm going to look at is now that I have my 5 minute time frame set up and I have my trigger level, I have my invalid level, and I have my targets, right? See how it's all kind of clustered in right here? This is a kind of a lower grade setup because it can be risky. We're going into an overnight high. We're going into a previous reaction level. We're going into the pre-market high. So this is kind of like a big reaction zone, right? So this is kind of like a more of a riskier trade, I would say, just because we're right smack kind of in the middle of it, right? So, and we just came off this huge candle. But you got to try it out and try the system out and let it play out, right? You got to kind of let it do its thing and trust in it and just take the losses with the wins. So right now that my 5 minute levels are all identified, I use a 2 minute as a retest. So what I'll do is after I have all my areas that I want to identify in the 5 minute, I go to my 2 minute and I wait for this retest, right? And you can see right here where I got it. Okay, that's where I got the trade marked up. So normally what I'll do is I'll mark it, I'll label it entry, and down here, the bottom of this candle, that could be my stop loss. Because you want a structured stop loss. Personally, that's what I do. I like to know that if price gets down here, it might potentially dump like this, right? Like it's doing now. this is about to fail soon too. So that's kind of what I look at, okay? You know if price gets back down here, there's a potential that look, bam, this can just fall down and you're gonna be stuck losing a whole crap load of money if you didn't set a stop loss. Always set a stop loss. Because price can move extremely fast as well. There is like this one candle can end up way up here in freaking 3 seconds. That's just the way it goes. When big money decides to get in, big money moves these bars very fast. These candles. So, like I said, I'm looking on the retest, right? So my entry would be my blue line at the top of this retest candle, and my stop loss would be at the bottom of the retest candle. So bam, I instantly get in on the next candle, right? It retest it. This is a big retest, and buyers stepped in and showed that hey, we want this to go up, and they retraced all of it back up in one candle and then some. So that is a good momentum push forward. That is what we want to see, right? So, but with that does sometimes come with some reaction, okay? Because again, we are in the middle of all of this cluster, and would be this normally isn't something I would probably take all the time, but being that the momentum was pushing up very well and we just came off of, some big push up, I decided to risk it. So right now what I'm looking at is we're in the play, right? And we're watching it, we're watching it, we're watching it. This is the hard part is getting in a play and then watching it immediately come down, right? And now you look like you're about to lose. The price goes back up, it comes down. This is the mental game, right? Is especially once you get into a trade, the mental game starts to play with you, right? Because you don't want to lose. Nobody wants to lose money, right? We all want to win and hit all these TP targets. But realistically, depending on who you are, there's different ways to go about it. I have learned to adapt to just accept the system as it is because again, it's been highly successful for me. I probably shooting around like 80 to 90% at the moment. Uh, so it's really working well for me. So I don't have that mental battle anymore, like I used to when I first started out learning and everything. Since I've developed the strategy, the mental battle is kind of dissipated, and now I just put my trust and let it go. So, and you could see how we're getting a lot of wick action. So like those wicks mean price came down, buyers fought back up, right? And this was the actual open and the close, or the open and the close. Right here, you can see how buyers tried to buy it up after they just fought back, and then sellers sold it back down, right? So there's a bit of a battle. This isn't a clean push up. So that kind of led me to believe that yeah, we're probably not going to get good enough momentum to really push up into these higher levels, but hopefully we can at least get to this first TP. Because after I get this first TP, this target level, what I do is I take my stop loss and I move it up to my entry. So I don't sell all of my shares. I try and break it up into at least 3 targets. Uh, just depending on how much size I have to put in and what price looks like. Because I keep myself limited on like a stop loss amount. I don't risk right now. I don't risk any more than $300. So if it's more or less over $300, then I won't. Here I can actually do this. So right now on this specific one, this is again we had a lot of candle movement. So just one share, that's 131, right? Because this is a 65 point stop loss. That's a pretty big stop loss, right? So right now I only would have put 2 shares into this, and then looking for at least 1.75 R because the success rate is kind of high. So I can kind of shoot for a lower target, minimum at least. But this is a little bit more than one. This is 1.03, so that could have been 272, and then that could have been 723, 953, 1100. So there's really a lot that you can make, especially if you're willing to risk the size. Right now I'm only playing with 50K prop firm accounts, so I don't really like to risk too much because I like to take, you know, 1 to 3 trades a day. So I want to allow myself, and in funded accounts you have um, not stop losses, but daily loss limits. So if you lose more than 1,000, I think one's 1,500, 2,000, et cetera, et cetera, then it shuts you down for the day and you can't trade. So I would hate to risk all of it on one trade and then get another trade set up that ended up freaking going to the moon or dropping the hell. I want to be able to allow myself at least 3 trades a day. So 300 times 3, 900. That way I can get in. I can leave myself open for at least 3 trades a day. In which, in this case, I took 3 trades because this is all one session. So today I took 3 trades and they were all successful, thankfully. So yeah, that's pretty much like the gist. It's kind of like a little basic breakdown of kind of what I'm looking at and what I'm looking for. When I do look at my targets, like I said, I kind of compare it to the ATR, to that movement, average candle movement, because I want to make sure that I'm not overshooting my target. I want to make sure like the amount of momentum we have, the amount of participation that we have right now at this current time is matching my target. I don't want my target to be, so like right here, this is where we're at 63 to 730. So that's like a 70 point, give or take. 67. Oh, stupid. 68. I'm looking at the target right there. So 68 points, right? And then at the time, this is live right now, but at the time, we're looking at about 108 point movement. And this is 0.75 ATR. I think it's 0.75, something like that. I think it's about 0.75, so about 3/4. And that's about an 81 point movement. So 81 and a quarter is higher than 68. So I know that we have the amount of momentum to actually push to hit this target, right? If I would have went for my second target, bam, that's about 181. Okay. Right now, the second target's looking at about 162. So this idea, structurally, this makes sense, right? Because on the 5 minute, we have structure that that justifies this as a TP target. But the current market and the amount of participation shows that we're probably not going to get to 181 points. The TP target's usually averaging about 162 and a half for something in that range. So we're probably not going to get here, and as you can see, we didn't get there, right? It kind of died out. So that helps you if you want to. With my stop loss, like I said, I move it as I move up. If I hit my first target, I'll put it to my entry. If I hit my second target, I move it to my first target, and just kind of that way, if once I'm green, I stay green, and I minimize all the risk. But once I hit this TP1, I move to entry. I didn't get any other play, but I was able to make this trade a profitable green trade regardless, because once I got my first target, I moved the rest of my stuff, the rest of my shares to my entry. So it's just kind of like playing it by ear, kind of managing your trade. Once you're in a trade, I do recommend paying attention to it, right? Not just putting it in stepping away and letting it go. Um, if you're battling with the psychological level of it, then I would figure out another way. I definitely just would not walk away because things can change. As you see, like the ATR is moving up now, like it's starting to really increase, 279. So like as a third target, if the second one would have allowed it, that's 237, 279. So if we would have had enough momentum to support the second target, we probably could have hit this third one. And then just taking off the two, right, to the third level, that's a $950 trade, and we risked 262. So we're really getting there. So you just kind of gotta allow it to do its thing, and stick to your system, dude. I'll break down another one for you. So that was the first one that I took, right? So let me go ahead and clear this stuff out so we can look at the next one. Oops, wrong thing. Delete that. My daughter's being a mess right now. It's funny. All right. So we did that one, right? So let's look at the second one, okay? This is another one that I took going into, let's see, we started it at about 7:30. That's that identification candle. All right, so let me go ahead and mark out what I was looking at, right? Because this was a short, so we were looking for an identification level, a trigger level that was under this 50 EMA. Looks like trigger. All right, so I got a trigger level, and then we have that trigger level activated. That gives me my invalid level. So if price goes back above here, you can see how, bam, it has the potential to go way up, right? So you don't want to, this pretty much lets me know that I'm probably not going to get what I want out of it, right? So bam, I have my level. All right, so now I have to go through and I have to mark my potential profit levels, right? I'm looking at places that might hold up this momentum. So now I'm going to start looking at different levels that I can identify. Right here we have these two levels as well. So now what I'm looking at is, bam, I have my trigger. I have some levels that I have my invalid, and I have some target levels based off of previous structure and previous areas that were where the price reacted. So bam, now I've set up on my 5. I go to my 2-minute. I find where I'm at. All right. So now, since we're looking at a short, after that trigger got set off at 720, I start looking for a retest, right? So 720, and then that candle would have closed the start of the next 5, or the end of the 5-minute candle would have been right here. And I start looking for a retest, right? Bam, bam, bam. I finally get a retest that comes back up and it starts retesting these other levels, right? So then that's when I'll take my handy dandy trade and I'll set myself up with a stop order because I don't want to just go in, right? I want price. If it's going to retest, I want it to prove that this resistance or support is going to be what it is. It identifies itself, right? I want this to be a resistance. So I want price to show that if it goes up here, that it's going to show it's going to try and force its way back down because price is trying to go down, right? Big wigs are trying to go down and touch price elsewhere. So that's what I'm identifying first, right? Now, another thing is, as you can see, we kind of got a bunch of levels all within each other again, right? They kind of they're definitely not by our entry level, but they're kind of all gathered up here. So what I'll do is I'll just like I'll pick one. I'll give my room some breathing, my trade some room to breathe, right? I don't want to just go in and then bam bam and then be out of the trade when I could have, got more out of it. Not to be greedy, but you want to give yourself room because those bigger wins are what help support you being able to take those losses whenever it's time, right? So bam, I'll identify my entry. I'll mark it. Oh, this will be my entry. This would be my stop loss. And then those are my targets, the green ones. So right now, we're pretty far away from the invalid. We have our short trigger. We have our stop loss. We have our entry. And we have our targets, right? Next candle, it reclaims it. Bam. Perfect. Especially good on the next when the next candle takes it and then goes with it, right? So right now, here's the other thing, okay? We pick which one. I usually pick the first one. So, oh. So after I get myself to the amount of shares I want, at this one I want 5 because it keeps me under 300. It'll push me down and I'll make a sale right here. I'll get rid of some of my shares. Bam, that next candle after that, it literally hits it and you can see where price reacted right off of that, right? Because of the previous structure that we used. So you could see how that's a good target because price reacted. And it potentially could have made its way all the way back up and then we wouldn't have gotten anything, right? So once I get that, boom, I move my stop loss. This is now a free trade. I just got however much you decide to sell off. If you sold all 5, that would have been 360 bucks, right? If you just decided to sell a couple of them, like say we sold 3 of them, boom, I now have $217.50. And once I move the stop loss back here, I have 2 more shares that are free, right? So now I can kind of set other targets. Since this one's so close and I move my stop loss up, I'm gonna skip over this because I'm in a free trade right now, right? And I've already gotten 200 something dollars. So I'm willing to risk ignoring this level and letting it go further. So what I'd do is I would just, and this is a key level, right? This is what we talked about, this white one. This is the overnight low. Usually, not all the time, but this is a reaction level. So that's another good potential place, right? So say we had 250 and then I have 2 shares left. Let's say I want to sell one more. I want to sell one of them right there. So 250 plus 138. So now you're sitting at almost $400 and you still have one more share to go. So then this right here is that value low. This red line coming off of our volume, right? So this can be another potential reaction mark where I want to potentially take another profit, okay? So right now we're sitting at like 500 bucks, right? We take this one and we sell our last share right there. We just added another $200 almost. So now we're sitting at like $700 and it still had room to go. So if you size up and you have more shares, then more profit, right? Eventually I want to get to where I want to risk 500. I'm not there yet, but the more you risk, the more you can make, the more you lose, right? The more you can lose. So you just kind of got to identify what you're comfortable with and start working towards what works for you, right? So that was the 2 trades I took today. Um, like I said, I usually average 1 to 3. Sometimes I don't trade at all during the day. Like sometimes I won't have a setup and it'd be like an extremely choppy day. Like today wasn't a very momentum based day. You could see how like it's kind of trending up technically, but there's a lot of wig, there's a lot of bouncing around and stuff. It's not one big like this, right? See that you pretty much have like one big fluent momentum push down, right? And then you have one back up into this little range where it, chops. Bam, that's technically, you going down. But some days, like I said, are better than others. Today's technically I would consider choppy. But you can still make money in the chop. You just gotta find that system. Uh, so that's like I said, the two trades that I took today, it really is a successful setup that I have that I've built over the past couple years. I've put in a lot of trust into it, and I'm trying to expand it. Eventually, I'm trying to look at potentially having an indicator that kind of identifies all this for you. Potentially looking at making a bot that can do all the trading for you, and you just let it run. So there's a lot to come. Just trying to build up the community now and really get this populated and going and spread the word around, trying to get everybody some money. Um, but I'll be around. I also recorded this, so if again, if anybody is interested and you want to learn more in depth on this strategy and really tone this in, I do have a 24-week academy where we really do get into the nitty gritty of all of this strategy. We really break down trades. There's a service that's in there that also I give you my alerts as I'm looking at trades live. Um, Through the Discord, I alert. There is a channel where I alert, like where I'm looking at entering. None of it's financial advice. It's just to help learn. So that way, when you're paper trading or however you decide to trade, this is to help teach my strategy. So, like I said, just let me know. I'll be around. Y'all hit me up. And let's get this money. Peace.